Hello, everybody. We do have an emergency hearing in the Diddy case coming up at 3 p.m. today. So I am going to try to get everything that has been filed up through that hearing out in a video so that we're all aware and we're all up to speed by the time the hearing happens today. So this is the next step in so doing. All right. So what the hearing is about today, November 19th, it has to do with allegations that Diddy is claiming that essentially he's not getting a fair trial. Essentially, he is arguing that his constitutional rights have been violated. And specifically, the violation of his rights was, according to him and his lawyer, Mark Agnifilo, this happened during a detention center or jail sweep. I was calling it a raid. Apparently, it was a sweep. So the government, the feds, they came into possession of some stuff that was taken from Diddy during this sweep. Okay. So Mark Agnifilo files a filing and he's saying, let Diddy out on bail. The government files a filing back and says, do not let him out on bail, primarily two big reasons. Number one, he hasn't told you anything new that you didn't already decide on, Your Honor. Other reason, you can't even trust the man in the jail. How are you going to trust him at his house? And then they said a bunch of reasons why you can't trust the man in the jail. They claimed that he was using other people's phone access codes. They claimed he was using unauthorized text messaging and voice apps. He was using unauthorized email apps. They were alleging that the man was trying to still get in touch with, contact, and intimidate witnesses. They were alleging he was contacting grand jury witnesses, paying them off, and all of that. Okay. Now, one of the things that the government relied on was documents or evidence, pictures, whatever, that was found during that sweep of the correctional facility. So Diddy demanded just yesterday, November 18th, Diddy demanded an emergency hearing so that the judge could decide yes or no. Were Diddy's rights violated, or did the government follow standard procedure? Okay. And I did make a video about Diddy and Mark Agnifilo's arguments there. So do make sure to go back and watch that one. I am going to start putting the document numbers somehow in the description box or whatever so that y'all can start to follow along on which document adds up to which one. So the document we're talking about right now is document 72, filed yesterday. Now, the government says, for the reasons that follow, the relief requested by Diddy, including an evidentiary hearing, are unnecessary. The government is saying it is not necessary to even have a hearing, which the judge decided to have the hearing. It's today at 3. They give the background. We've been over this a trillion times. We already know this. Diddy was arrested. The next day, the indictment was unsealed. The government moved to keep him detained. The judge kept him detained. Okay. Diddy appealed the next day. The next judge the appeals judge also kept him detained. Okay. Then the government says, since being ordered detained, he's been held at the MDC, a Bureau of Prisons facility. With respect to inmate communications, okay, this part's important. A lot of y'all were saying this in comments as well, which I did know. And I think there was a little bit of confusion amongst y'all. Like, I think y'all thought that I was somehow saying Diddy was surprised that his phone calls were being monitored or recorded. That's not what I was saying. So I think y'all might have misunderstood that. I wasn't saying I'm surprised that his calls were recorded. I'm not freaking stupid. What I was saying is Diddy found out at the same time as the public, not that his calls were being recorded, that the government, the federal prosecutors who were prosecuting him, had already had those recorded phone calls. Didn't tell him. Nobody told his lawyer. Nobody told him. And he found out at the same time as the public. That's what I was saying. I wasn't saying, oh my God, can you believe they were recording Diddy's call? I'm not stupid. Jesus Christ, y'all think I'm stupid. I hid some of y'all from channel. Y'all clearly have no idea who you're talking to. So this is an important distinction. I think it is worth noting on the behalf of the government. They said, quote, with respect to inmate communications, all Bureau of Prison inmates, including Diddy, are afforded the opportunity to confer with attorneys, meaning to talk to their attorneys, on, quote, unmonitored phone lines. Okay. So they're saying, all right, just so you're aware, Your Honor, Diddy had the option to talk to his attorney on a phone call that was not monitored or recorded. Okay. He could have talked to him in that way. Very important to me that they're leading with that. They go on to say other communications occur over the prison monitored phone lines and email. As part of its general practice to screen monitored communications for content that would jeopardize public safety. Okay, so they're saying, look, Your Honor, just to remind you, there's ways that Diddy can talk to his lawyer that we have nothing to do with, and we will never be able to hear it. If you get on our Bureau of Prison phone, then it is recorded, and Diddy should know that. So then the government goes on to say, as we already told Your Honor just 3 days ago, the government's grand jury investigation of Diddy, including his obstruction related to this criminal case, is continuing. Okay, so the government's grand jury investigation is continuing, the government says. As part of that investigation, the government says that they requested phone calls from the Bureau of Prisons, requested the quote, monitored communications. Okay. Importantly, they're saying Diddy could have talked on them unmonitored calls. He did not do that. He did not do that. Instead, what he did was he talked also on the monitored phone lines, and he should have known we were going to be able to access that, which we did. We requested it. We sent in, look, a subpoena. This is the legal proper way to go about it, as far as I understand. From those materials, the government has learned that the defendant has persisted. So Diddy. So through the stuff we got, the government says, we have learned Diddy has persisted in engaging in obstructive conduct since he entered Bureau of Prisons custody. We talked about this already, but among other things, the defendant has engaged in unauthorized communications practices. The three-way calling on the unmonitored phone lines, the use of other inmates' phone access codes to make calls on the monitored phone line, and the use of a third-party text messaging provider through the Bureau of Prisons monitored email system. Each of these methods of communications is prohibited by the Bureau of Prisons. Okay, so he did 3 different things that they claim, the government claims, Diddy broke the rules with. He broke the rules. He did communication methods prohibited by the Bureau of Prisons. Furthermore, the government says he used unauthorized methods of communications to continue to engage in obstruction. So not only was he just using, like if he would have just been calling up just to shoot with his friend, that would have still been unauthorized use. But they're saying he took it a step further, Your Honor. He broke jail rules, used unauthorized methods of communication to speak with people, and in particular, to engage in obstruction, including instructing third parties to reach out to witnesses and attempting to influence the jury pool in this criminal case. Then they drop this little on us. They say Diddy has used all 3 of the aforementioned methods of communications to communicate with his attorneys. Stupid. So Diddy was communicating with his attorneys on the monitored lines. And the government's kind of saying what y'all were saying. A lot of y'all were saying in the comments yesterday. Diddy should have known. I mean, don't all of us know? Don't we all know the phone lines in prisons are recorded? Like, even if you ever got a call from jail, the phone line is being recorded. Like, so they're saying Diddy used all 3 unauthorized methods of communication to communicate not only with just people out there and go witness, intimidate, and all of that. No, his lawyer too. The government says, accordingly, although it is clear to all parties involved that these calls and emails are monitored, hint, hint, Diddy, in an abundance of caution, the government sent any potentially privileged communication, i.e., all the communications involving an attorney, to the filter team for review before it was released to the case team. Okay, so the case team refers to the people who are actually trying the case, right? The people who are on the team, who are on the day-to-day, who are the ones who really need to know or not know the information. They're going to be arguing the case. Well, they have a filter team there too, and this is put in place for exactly this reason. The government says that the filter team reviewed everything before it was passed to the case team, and they're saying this is the practice. They go on to say, as is the government's longstanding practice in ongoing covert investigations. So hint, hint, y'all, right here. ongoing covert investigation means they're still looking into Diddy. The grand jury is still investigating, and it's supposed to not really be that obvious. It's covert, but covert doesn't mean illegal or unconstitutional. They said, this is the government's practice. We've done it before. We'll do it again. When we're gathering investigation material on someone who is obstructing justice, we don't always disclose things to a lawyer before we put it out in the public because the man is going to maybe try to do something untoward. That's their argument. So then they go on to say, importantly, as stated in the government's opposition to Diddy's bail motion, we are going to give Diddy all the documents and the calls and the emails and everything today. So this was filed yesterday. So Diddy now, I guess, has possession of the documents. That's what seems to be being implied. And the calls and the recordings and all that. Okay, so then we're going to get into the part where we're talking about what they found in his bunk. October 28th, 2024, the Bureau of Prisons and several other federal and local agencies initiated a sweep of the jail. The sweep was pre-planned and coordinated to ensure the safety and security of staff. The case team was aware in advance that this was going to happen, but the case team did not supervise it. They did not instruct anybody to do anything. They didn't even know who exactly was going to be doing the sweep. They just knew a sweep was going to take place. So then we get to this part right here in the box. Investigator 1 was assigned. So Investigator 1, we have a new person. Blue means there's a person. If you're red, green, colorblind, my bad. I mean, they don't really give us a lot of options of colors on this thing. But this right here, Investigator 1, is a person. It's like a John Doe, right? Investigator 1. He was assigned to participate in the week-long sweep. The sweep was a week long, y'all. And was present at the jail during the operation. During the sweep of the defendant's housing unit. So during the sweep of Diddy's bunk, his housing unit, Investigator 1 interviewed multiple inmates, including the defendant, about potential corruption and contraband at the MDC. Okay, so y'all, blink and you miss it. While the week-long sweep was going on, Diddy was interviewed. Diddy was interviewed about the jail, the facility, and about things going on in there, including specifically, quote, potential corruption. Following Diddy's interview with that investigator went to Diddy's bunk to check for contraband. On his bunk, Investigator 1 found the following items. So what did he find? Number 1, a manila folder marked legal. Number 2, a notebook labeled redacted. I don't know, it doesn't say, it's just blank. Number 3, they found an address book. And number 4, quote, personal effects. What is this? I don't know. Could be a toy girl, could be a snack. I don't know. Investigator 1, this investigator, he felt, or she, outside of the manila folder that was marked legal. So he's feeling it to see if it had anything in there that might be contraband. Feeling none, the investigator set it aside and did not open the legal. So there's a manila folder that says legal. The guy kind of rubs his hand across it, under it, to feel for a shank or whatever, and he doesn't feel anything. So he takes the folder and he puts it to the side. He doesn't take a picture of it. He doesn't open it. He doesn't look at it. Then it goes on, with respect to the notebook labeled redacted and the address book, Investigator 1 took photos of these materials. He left the materials on Diddy's bunk. He left them on Diddy's bunk. No physical materials were seized from the defendant. I read this already, but I didn't really, I guess maybe I didn't read that sentence or I passed over it. Mark Agnifilo is getting his cortisol entirely ass through the roof, screaming up and down this courthouse about how, in the filings, about how Diddy's items were taken. They took his pens, they took his notes, they took all of his communications. The government is saying no physical materials were seized. It's just he took a few pictures and he didn't take pictures of everything either. But then they go on. Following the sweep, the investigator alerted the case team that he had taken photos of the notebook and the address book. So he let them know. He described the notebook, the redacted notebook, as largely, quote, notes to self, written by Diddy that included notes regarding blank, redacted, we don't know. But we do know from other filings made by the government that in some of these notes, there was reference to perhaps lead one to believe that Diddy was paying off, I believe, witness 2 for her Instagram statement. So maybe that's something about the redactions right there. Maybe it was a notes regarding the Don Richards lawsuit or something. In an abundance of caution. Okay, so the case team, they were alerted. The investigator calls up the people prosecuting the case. They said, hey, we got some stuff out here. We got a notebook, address book, and we took pictures of some of this stuff. And the case team, the people prosecuting the case, quote, out of an abundance of caution, asked the investigator to send those photographs to the filter team. They're like, we don't want to see it. Nope, nope, don't send it to us because we already know how Diddy's going to do. We already know what Diddy's going to do. I mean, that's probably what they were thinking. Maybe they were thinking, oh, he deserves a right to a fair trial. But girl, they know that they have to have their ducks in a row on this one. So it gets sent to this, quote, filter team that's in place for that reason. And following their review, the filter team provided certain photographs to the case team, including photographs containing redactions. Okay. So they're saying, Your Honor, we don't even have them. We've never seen them. They're saying we followed every rule. We did everything we were supposed to do. We sent it to the filter team. The filter team sent us stuff. That's how it went. For reference, they say the government is including as exhibits photographs of the notebook labeled, quote, things to do, and the address book as exhibit A, which contains redactions. Again, they're saying we don't have the stuff. The filter team redacted stuff. We also don't have any notes between him and his lawyers, so we're not in possession of privileged materials. So then they just move on to their legal argument, and they're like, the court should deny the defendant's motion to reopen the bail hearing because he failed to present any new information or material. On top of that, he's actively obstructing this case from inside the jail, so obviously you shouldn't let him out of the jail. Now, they do say that the thing that Mark Agnifilo seems to have the biggest issue with are the portions of the photographs that reflect Diddy's notes. Agnifilo argued privileged notes to his lawyers concerning defense witnesses and defense strategies. Agnifilo and Diddy also take issue with the fact that the government had engaged in a, quote, targeted seizure of defendant's materials. And then they cite the law again, in accordance with the Bureau of Prisons policy. Staff may search an inmate's housing and work area and personal items contained within the areas. You don't have to provide notice to the inmates or any prior approval from the inmate. You can do this search and this sweep of his bunk in the sleeping area outside of the inmate's presence and without their permission. So this is the rule. This is the precedent they're citing. This is consistent with the law, they say. He has a reasonable expectation of privacy only to the extent that it's balanced against the interest of society and the security of its penal institutions. So then the government answers my question I was asking yesterday. How does this normally work? Is Diddy being treated differently than what is considered fair? They say when potentially privileged materials are obtained by the government, the use of a filter team is a common procedure in this district and has been deemed adequate in numerous cases. And even if there were an inadvertent disclosure of privileged material to the prosecution team, that alone doesn't suggest that Diddy's constitutional rights were violated. Now, to defend themselves, they say there's no way that this was targeted. There's no way this was targeted to get Diddy's stuff. They say this was a pre-planned sweep that had been planned well in advance before Diddy was ever even arrested. So how could it be that they did a targeted sweep of just Diddy when everybody's stuff was searched? Many people's stuff was searched. It was pre-planned for a very long time involving multiple agencies. And on top of that, the government argues, we didn't even know until after the fact, after the whole sweep was over and done with, that there were photographs, okay? And then again, we learned about them, but they were with the filter team until they redacted them. We didn't see them. They say the government's use of the filter team to review the photographs in the first instance was entirely appropriate and adequately protected Diddy's rights. And then they say, okay, one more thing, final thing, Your Honor. The photographs and what is depicted in them are not privileged. The defendant doesn't argue that the notes in the photographs were prepared for the purpose of obtaining legal advice. They say, contrary to lion-ass Mark Agnifilo, paraphrasing, the photographs do not reflect notes to the lawyers concerning defense witnesses and defense strategies. They depict the defendant's wide-ranging notes to himself, including notes related to the defendant's business interests. So here's another thing that they found. The notes are relating to the defendant's business interests, his release of music, and family matters, among other things. Under the law, these sorts of notes are not protected by the work product doctrine. So he is in jail talking about releasing music, y'all. This man is not planning to stay here for very long. And I do want to just wrap this up with one final thought that a lot of y'all were saying, a few of y'all were saying, is it possible Diddy's doing this on purpose? Like, is it possible that he wants them to come in and violate his rights so that he can say it was a mistrial? So now it's like confusing, and I'm definitely looking forward to that hearing today. Make sure you're tuned in. We will be live by 3 o'clock. That's when the hearing is supposed to start, 3 p.m. It's 10:37 a.m. right now. That's all I really had for right now. I'll see y'all later today. In the meantime, if facts ain't defamation, and neither is reading the public record, girl. Love you, Mina K. Bye. Welcome into my world. You're playing my game. Thought that you could come up and they're fitting off of my name. Talking out the side of your neck like you're insane. Cortisol levels to the roof. Kids these days so shameless, selling out real friends for a paycheck. Mama didn't teach them no home training. Wanna be me so bad, but they failing. Step to the plate though, I'll take a challenger. I ain't scared of no low life scavenger. I should warn you though, if you haven't heard, I ain't no Colleen, ukulele ballanger. Shots been fired, run and tell that. Say it to my face though, now behind my back. Won't be long till you share it in the group chat. And when I call you up, you're gonna backtrack. And you should've kept my name out your mouth.